Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage we are doing the last part of the Shocking Shockmounts saga. Hi everyone! So if you've been following along with this, you'll know exactly where we're up to, but if not, the world's fastest recap is that if your shock mounts break down on your Jaguar XK8 or XKR and you need to replace them, you have some challenges. Original equipment items are still available as old stock. They will be very expensive and very hard to find. Plus, you are buying 20 plus years old rubber or polyurethane. If you go aftermarket, you will generally be buying something from companies like Welsh, from Euro, from various others, and they're not always up to the quality that you expect. You don't really know where they're being made, and my experience with my parts has not been great. And there are lots of alternatives coming out on the market, including a couple of options from subscribers to this channel that are much better, and we're going to be fitting those. So at this point, I'm sure we've only really got the faithful who really want to know about this stuff with us. It's been a couple of weeks since I took these out of the car. So these are the bushes that came with my mounts that came from British parts. I'm not suggesting they made them. I think they're probably made by Euro, but nothing's marked up. And they are still distorted and compressed. And, you know, this stuff is not up to the job, in my opinion. This is why our dampers tend to move away from the central position, is a couple of moves on this soft rubber allows the shocker to move over in its mounting, because these things are like memory foam and just don't support. They also don't grip the casing that they're in the same way as the originals did. The spring seats are even more shocking because they're going to take a hell of a load all of the time, and they give no support whatsoever. So your ride height is going to be well down on what it should be because of the quality of these. And they really don't offer a lot of support to the top of the spring, meaning that the tail at the top of your spring puts big distortions on the top hat washer and tends to make the spring lean over. So the influence of where that tail is ever more important. And if you are going to position the tail actively, then position it towards the outside of the car. That seems to give the best results. I'm not going to be refitting these for obvious reasons. In my previous videos, I've explained really fully the ones available from Peter Hobman. And if you look in the description below this video, you'll find details for how to get exactly the same sort of thing as I'm getting from Peter, who's based in the US. And this is where I'm going. I've been having lots of great advice and input from Peter, but also Steve Davis, and one of our subscribers, thanks Steve, is in Australia, and he has his own solution. It's a very similar material, it's coloured, it's cast in a different way in a full form mould. So Peter's look a little different, having pockets on the back of the spring seat to allow for the heads, there we go, the heads of the nuts on there, rather than allowing the rubber to accommodate it through distortion, and also little pockets for the tails of the rivets. But very similar density of material, and the thickness of the part that applies the ride height is identical on both sets. Similarly with the bushes that go inside the shock mount and locate the top of the shocker, they're a more full form moulding, but work on a very similar principle. The only difference is it's got this lip that comes through the top, and so when you put this set together with the washer and you assemble the whole thing, you again get that very full form fitment. It's quite grippy, so you've got to squish it to get it to go down the sides of the pressing. There we go, it's in there. And exactly the same as Peter's, you've got this sort of 5-6 mil gap where you can't quite get this down, so you're going to be clamping this together before pop riveting them together. As with Peter's, Steve's also come with 2 flavours of bush, one for the Euro mounts for the lower half in this particular case, and one for OEM and Welsh mounts. But I think there might be even more variations on these out there, so I don't think just these 2 descriptions work, but there does appear to just be 2 different depths of this cup. So both sets have these. If you put the larger set in, the OE, then you'd never be able to clamp this down because you'd end up with an 11-12 mil gap that you just can't close up with these far denser rubbers. So both excellent kits, both come with the rivets, so you don't even have to search around for your rivets. I'd suggest that if you're in Australia, it's a no-brainer. You're going to go for Steve Davis's set. If you're in America, you might be wanting to go for Peter Hobman's, because you're going to save money on delivery. If you're in Europe like me, you know, pays your money, takes your choice. I doubt you're going to find any issues with either of these sets. So thanks to both gentlemen for sending those in. Stay tuned to the end of this video if you want to do this job, because I'm going to give away one of these sets that were kindly donated by our fellow subscribers. I'm going to fit Pete Hobman's. Thanks, Peter. So the set from Steve Davis is going to end up in the laps of one of you nice folks. So stay tuned till the end. Another piece of info that came from one of our subscribers. I think it actually came from a couple of subscribers, but my memory's not good for names. Rollycraft is his handle, and I was looking at these. These are the spring seats themselves, the bits that go on top of that to stop this spring from actually making contact with the rubber and therefore rubbing its way through. And when I was looking at these are the ones that are brand new, supplied with the British Parts spring mounts that I bought. These were the originals that were on the car, which I assume to be OEM. And this one looks blacker and shinier, this one's a bit duller. I did some experiments using my voice to try and detect which one was the firmer plastic, if you like. They're both a very rigid, firm plastic, so I thought. And I found no difference between them, so it doesn't really make any odds which ones I refit. Rollycraft pointed out, John, these are actually steel. They are coated in plastic. Now, that makes a lot of sense for how stiff these were, and by his suggestion I did the obvious and got a magnet, and sure enough they're both steel, so that proves there is no difference. There might be a slightly different gauge of steel in here, but it's steel coated in rubber, so they are not the issue. It really doesn't matter which of those I fit. Okay, so now I'm going to start reassembling my top mounts. I'm using the shells, the pressings that came from my British car parts units. There's nothing wrong with them. So what I'm doing is I'm using the Pete Hobman kit. I've got my part A, which is a thicker one, goes in the bottom with this set. Both guys give you instructions Then we got the washer that went in the old sets, came from my, again, British Parts outfit. Whichever unit you strip down, you can reuse this. You want the flat side at the top and the concave side at the bottom. That goes in there and seats nicely. Then we're putting on a top, and I'm using one of the thinner ones because of my Euro style shells. There are two schools of thought as to what this hole is for in here. Both sound very valid to me. One is that it's a drain hole in case water gets into this area. So for that reason, it's worth positioning this facing one of the studs, because you can make that the low part so that any water accumulating in here can get out through that hole. The other school of thought says that this is actually to knock a roll pin or an R-clip in to lock the nut on the top and prevent it from turning. Either way, that at the bottom is not going to cause you a grief, so why not position it facing one of the studs? Top shell goes on. It's easy to get these the wrong way up because they can look as if this is probably the right way, but it's wrong. This is the right way. They're sort of pressing down onto the bush. Something to guide you is here, there's a recess for the head of the rivet. So that is your clue that this is actually the top. The big holes go over your studs and give you a lot of room to wriggle. Now you could use these other holes to put 8mm bolts through and align it all perfectly. I'm happy doing it by eye. So what we're doing is we're just popping on some washers. These will come back off. Fitting some nuts. These are not the right nuts. These are non-nylock for ease. Because all we want to do is to clamp this shut. There we go. And you can see we've got this gap all around. And I want to make sure that all this is nice and concentric. So I'm going to be slackening this off and playing with it until I get it how I want it. And then I'm going to bolt them down using a ratchet. In both kits, this is a 4.75mm diameter rivet. The hole in here is just over 4.5. So in order to get a standard rivet to fit, I'm going to fit a 5mm drill and take these 4.5mm holes to 5mm so that they're a good fit for my 4.75mm rivets. And with those opened up, I can use the rivets as further guides to align the whole thing nicely. There we go. It's all very good eyeing this up. If you can't get the rivets through, it's all a bit pointless. Right, they're in. Doweling the whole situation. There, I'm quite happy with that. Now, I'll wind these up a little. Just to get some grip going on. There we go. It shouldn't wander now. take them out so I don't catch my knuckles. There we go. So I've clamped that down, and there's a significant amount of pressure on that, which was always lacking in the original. Which was always lacking when we had these in. And I'm just going to recheck that my rivets still line up nicely with the holes. Yep, that's good. And I've got a vice grip or mole grip, which I'm going to use to, and you can see the flex. And that's because even though these are clamped, there's a lot of pressure under here, and this is sheet steel at the end of the day. So let's clamp that, see how tight I can get it. And there, just give this another little pinch. And with those two nice and firmly clamped, we got as intimate a contact as we're going to get. We can pull up the pop rivet. If you haven't got a decent pop rivet gun, I recommend getting one like mine. If you're going to buy one, I mean, if you've got one, they're great. But if you haven't got one, get one that does this. So handy to be able to get into various positions. I won't believe how useful that is. Ooh, a little bit of tail from the last job. So straight onto there, and let's crimp this up. Oh, I'm really struggling with that. Oh, these are good rivets. Ah, that is tight. Nicely done. I'm nearly not heavy enough to do these rivets. Well, they're certainly going to be secure. Oh no! You've seen that snapped in the wrong place. Not the end of the world. It's formed the rivet correctly. So all we need to do is fire that through that way. Fully loaded shock mount. Now what we need to do is just dress the bottoms of these rivets. Make sure we leave no sharp edges. Here's an original, so you know they're not anything particularly elegant, even on the OE ones. So I'm just using the anvil on the back of my vise to flatten out the deformed area of the rivet. So I've gone from that to that. There we go. Nice and neat. Next thing to do is get rid of those temporary nuts. Now the next part of the job might seem a little out of sequence, but trust me on this one, is you're going to fit your damper Gator or shock absorber Gator, and that just sits in that cup there and it's going to fall straight back out. However, we have a thing that's actually called by Jaguar the spring assister. This is the original, but to all normal human beings you would say is a bump stop. And I've got some new bump stops, and that one, as you can see, is just the ravages of time have ate it. And you take that bump stop and you're going to push it inside your Gator, and when that bit gets to there, it's a close size fit with a hole. By the time you've added the thickness of the rubber of your Gator in, it's a very tight fit in the hole, and that actually is what clamps the Gator onto the shock mount. Make sure it's fully engaged, and at that stage it's not coming anywhere off, and it's almost impossible to do that once you've assembled everything. So that's why you fit the Gator at that stage. Okay, so I have talked about this in a previous video, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's vital. This is going to look like I'm clamping my vise down onto a damper. Do not ever squeeze this tube. You've just destroyed your damper. What I'm going to do is close the jaws of my vise above my damper, making sure it's still plenty loose. It just means it can't come out upwards, which means I can lean down on there without this jiggling around. It's the easiest way to hold the damper. Now I've positioned my damper in the vise with the bolt hole going left to right. I've actually got outside marked on it. I've got this spring seat here that just sits against this ring, and it's got a stop and kind of spiral arrangement. As we talked about in other videos, some cars will have spacers below this. It appears that in the main they're XKRs, but yeah, it's different on different cars. That's all we know for sure. And the tail of my spring at the bottom is going to touch this peg, which will put the spiral into the right sort of place, like so. And I know this is the outside of the car, and I'm going to position the tail of my spring, the top tail, towards the outside of the car. That's this bit. It should not matter with this new setup, but if it's going to influence anything, it's going to influence it least if it's facing the outside of the car, the wheel. One of my Pete Hobman spring mounts, or spring isolator, correct name. Just push it onto that pressing. Sits nicely. I'm going to then fit this top hat or spring seat like so. Remember, I've already decided that the hole is going to go at the low side of this shock mount. It tilts over, i.e. the engine side. So this stud is going to be the engine side. The top of my spring, I've got it set up in the vise, is the outside. So that gives me that orientation. So we're just going to slide that on. And then we're going to get a nut on the end of here so it's reasonably safe. There's a flatted section on the end of the shock absorber shaft you can grip and just pinch up that top nut. There we go. Now I'm back to just checking all my alignment before I take the pressure off the springs. So things have moved around. I think it has, and I'm just going to take this out of the vise to check a little better. Just need to get the bottom seat in the right place now. There we go. So, hole inside a car, one bolt inside car, tail of spring outside of car, and our damper, there's the bolt pin that way, so this is the outside of the car. It all lines up. Now we can take some tension off the spring compressors. And there we have it, boys and girls. I am so much happier with that. It's night and day compared to the previous situation. I know they're not settled or anything, but look how thick that still remains. There we go. It does distort there a little bit around the tail of the spring, but nothing like it was. I mean, nothing, night and day. And I will put some of that down to the extra thickness in my coils because I've got the upgraded springs. If we look at an OE spring, the thickness of the... Well, that sort of completes the saga as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to video me reinstalling these. You can go back and check the previous videos to see me removing them because I've been in and out 3 or 4 times now. I have checked for square and my damper now sits vertical compared to the base plate, the shock mount, so that's an improvement too. And what I will do, because I don't have a time machine, is I will do a video short of the position of the damper in its hole every month, and I will do the same with the ride height, just so you can see how things are getting on. So I can't tell you that these two solutions, the Hobman or the Steve Davis, also known as Baxtor 52 solutions, work long term. But as an engineer and somebody who's Jag fanatic, I can tell you that my sense is there's no way they're going to fail. They're just great. But that's my opinion, nobody else's. You should make your own inquiries. You should make your own decisions. This is what I've done. But thank you so much to both Steve Davis and Peter Hobman for getting involved in this video, supplying these parts so that we could all look at them, and really doing something great for the XK8 community. I commend you both. Peter's stuff is on my car. No higher praise can be made. And because it came a little later, Steve's stuff is not on my car. But share the wealth, as they say. And what I want to do now is give away a complete set of the upgraded shock mounts that you've seen from Steve Davis, Baxtor 52. Put links in the description to both kits and both people's contact details. But if you would like to receive that set free of charge, delivered anywhere in the world, because I was lucky enough to be sent these things free of charge, then enter into this little bargain with me. I'm only going to give them to a subscriber, so subscribe to the channel right now. So somewhere on your YouTube page, you will be able to see a little subscribe button. Click it, it costs you nothing, and just adds this channel to the garage as a favourite for you. Also click the little bell icon, and that gives you notifications when new videos come out, including the result of what I'm about to say. As long as you're a subscriber and you comment in the comments below this video using the words, "I would like some shock mounts, please, John," then I will take your name and add it to all the others that similarly comment below this video and are subscribers to this channel. And 1 week from today, I will do a draw and pick one of those names and announce it. And obviously I'll have to rely on that individual to get back in touch with me to let me know their address so that I can get those out to them. So there you are. I've upgraded my car. We've all learnt an awful lot, and somebody else is going to get some upgrade parts for their car free of charge. Couldn't be better. If you enjoy this channel, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up. Love your comments, and I'll see you all very, very soon when I'll be doing lots and lots more Jaguar stuff, fitting many of the bits I've got in this mystery box down here, taking you on some drives out in the XK8, and tinkering with all my other toys in and around the garage. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.